Hello again, continuing with the series on the history, design and selection of knives. And we come to a book which is a very significant addition to the history of a particular weapon. And I refer to this book, The First Commando Knives by Professor Kelly Yeaton. Now, Professor Yeaton was the brother of Sam Yeaton, a US Marine Corps officer who was deployed to Shanghai in the 1930s. And the two brothers, who both had an interest in shooting and edge weapons and so on, communicated via a series of letters, and the book quotes from this correspondence very profusely. And the book sets the scene with Shanghai and just what a dangerous place it was. The Shanghai Municipal Police used to recruit officers from London, and the book quotes, "Recruits required some inducement, for Shanghai had become a dangerous city to police. Armed robberies and kidnappings occurred daily. On the average, there would be a gunshot every 5 hours. The chairman of the municipal council promoted an exchange with the Chicago police force, that other great center of gangster activity. 5 Chicago policemen swapped with their Shanghai counterparts for 6 months. The chairman said, our chaps liked it over there and looked on it as a bit of a holiday. They taught the Americans how to shoot from the hip and a lot of useful stuff. The Chicago policemen found Shanghai a different story. After 1 month, they asked to go home. The dangerous streets unnerved them." Now, Sam Yeaton was very interested in close combat. He was an excellent pistol shot. He fenced. He trained with the knife, and he took part in combat judo, or what they call rough and tumble fighting. So much so that the chief instructor, Colonel Biddle, actually used to introduce him as Yeaton, the greatest of them all. So he really knew the subject. So he was deployed along with 2 other officers, also called Sam Moore and Sam Taxis, to this detachment in Shanghai. And the reasons that the US Marine Corps were there was because Shanghai was such a dangerous place and they needed the military. And there's actually pictures in the book of US Marines manning a belt-fed machine gun in the streets of Shanghai. That's how dangerous it was. So Sam Yeaton arrives. Now, he has already credited some of his knowledge to having read Scientific Self-Defense by Fairbairn back when he was training in the Marine Corps. And so he very quickly arranged to meet Fairbairn. And this is what he wrote to his brother. "This man Fairbairn is beyond the shadow of a doubt the greatest of them all. I've had about 12 hours of conferences with him and done a couple of hours work on the mats. His stuff is not jiu-jitsu or judo. He gave us an exhibition of judo using 5 men, 2 third-degree black belts, 2 second and 1 first, to prove it. He uses some of their falls and a few holds, but not more than about 20% of it, and most with variations. It's not Chinese boxing, of which 80% is mere ritual. It's a collection of all the known methods of dirty fighting, and it will beat them all. He knows it will. He's done it." He goes on in that vein. So this isn't a novice who's easily impressed. This is a guy who's a career. His career depends on close quarter combat. So the book goes on that Sam Yeaton decides to have a knife made, and he gets some of the guys from the armory, and he sketches out the design. And what emerges is what's known as the Shanghai knife, which is kind of a compact version of what will become the Fairbairn Sykes. And he presents one to Fairbairn. He sends one to his brother, Kelly, back in the United States, and he gives out some to other friends of his. I think the two Sams each got one. I think there's about a dozen made altogether. There were some variations in them, different handle materials, for example. Some were wood and some were made of other materials, whatever was available. But the knife was designed for knife-on-knife fighting. That's what the Shanghai knife was for. And it's a very rare occurrence. And in fact, Professor Yeaton says it's very probable the Shanghai knife was never ever used in a fight, but they used to train with it. And there's a section on the book on knife fighting, knife-on-knife fighting, what the guys discovered by training with each other. And there's a particular section on the hand cup, the mechanics of the hand cup, which I won't go into because the book deserves to be read. One of the things that when Kelly Yeaton received his knife, he wanted a sheath for it, and because the sheaths in China were made locally, and he got Jack Martin to make him a really nice leather sheath, and there's a picture of it there. And Jack Martin was half of the Burns Martin holster company, who were famous because Ian Fleming equipped James Bond with a Burns Martin triple draw holster, not realizing that it's a revolver holster and it's unsuited for a Volta PPK. But they were very well-known holster makers. So that was the thing. And Kelly Yeaton makes some other designs himself, lapel knives and all sorts of throwing knives and everything. There's another section on E.A. Sykes and really giving him due prominence in the story. He was, by all accounts, an excellent instructor and an excellent performer of close quarter combat. And there's also some letters exchanged between Sykes and Applegate. Sykes from London and Applegate in the States. And you can see the originals written on War Office notepaper. Very interesting, a very interesting part of the history. Well worth reading. And again, I won't quote them because read the book. But then the later part of the book does go into some material that they gained from, the author gained from Bill Pilkington, and also Captain Peter Mason, which can't be relied on in any way at all. And it does detract a little bit. However, the rest of the book and the bulk of the book is well worth reading and is a very, very significant addition to the history of close quarter combat. And as such, it really is one of my favorites. And I've used it for research and I've quoted from it a lot over the years. And if you're into close quarter combat, into edge weapons, it should be on your bookshelf.